Hey students, Mark Ferrier here, and this video is going to go over the rhetorical analysis essay. Okay, this will be the first essay that you do for this class, so I'm going to walk through things a little bit more in detail, and the subsequent essays I'll probably cut a little bit shorter because you'll have gotten the gist by then. But note that for the rhetorical analysis essay and all the essay assignments, there's a table of content here. So we're going to look at descriptions, instructions, and topic. Just note that for peer review, this section is when you're looking at other students' essays, what to comment on. But when you're commenting on other students' essays, you want to use these instructions and description to tell you what, or to help you discuss what you can comment on the other students' work, okay? But let's start with the rhetorical analysis essay itself. If you've gone through this module already, up to this point, you should have done all the readings. So when you've done this video, sort of assumes that you've done the readings before and have an understanding of what we're talking about here. For example, when we say logos, logos is covered in the readings for this first module, okay? But just to get back to the basics here, your description, the basic task, what you're doing for this essay is evaluating the effectiveness of someone else's written argument. And you're not looking at a page count here. We're going to look at word count. You want about 900 words where you evaluate the effectiveness of someone else's argument. So this is important here. This evaluation portion is important because what you want to do is not just say, here is the other person's argument and identify it. You're going to gauge and assess it and discuss how well it's written. So not just what is the person's argument, but you evaluating it, okay? So in the instructions here, you want to choose a specific written argument to analyze. If we use the table of contents here for topic, or if we scroll down and go a little bit further ahead, you'll see here you have our option one, arguments found in local newspapers, arguments from historical persuasive speeches, and arguments from TED Talks. Now, what you want to be clear here is that you get to choose from here. You get to choose the argument that you want to assess and evaluate. So you'll come down here, you'll look at some examples here from option 1. You can look at articles and choose one from these links. From option 2, you can choose articles from these links, or option 3, you can choose articles here, TED Talk. So TED Talk counts as a text for the purposes of this assignment. You can choose an argument from here. All right, if you want to do something that's not on this list, send me an email and let me know, but I prefer that you stick with these unless there's a very specific reason why you don't want to. Okay, so once you've chosen your argument that you want to analyze and have an understanding of the readings, and let's say, and let's be clear here, you completed the readings in the module up to now, from here, what you want to do is, let's go down to the instructions, is start to think about how can you assess this. So what you want to do is, within that assessment that you're going to do, is you're going to identify the text and use your reading skills to figure out what is the main idea, the supporting details, and the layout of this text that you're analyzing. Then you're going to look at the rhetorical elements. This is from our readings from the module, so you'll think about ethos, pathos, logos, and the rhetorical situation. And you'll want to come to a conclusion that says, how effective is this argument at targeting the audience? So remember, when we're talking about the rhetorical situation, we're doing an assessment in terms of rhetorical analysis, and how effective is the message that's being targeted to the audience and the messenger delivering that message. All right, and that's what it's going to help explain to me and the reader of your essay how you understand the rhetorical situation. So here's a note that you want to make sure your conclusion is a balance of your subjective perspective and the evidence in the text. So you will need to point to specific parts in the text. All right. Once you've identified parts of the text that you want to use in your assessment, in your essay, you're going to quote and cite that, and we'll get to that in a moment. So let's move on to these specific instructions. Once you've done the task of choosing your essay, you're choosing your argument. In your own essay, you're going to identify what is the main idea of the argument, supporting details, organization, and layout. Your essay needs to talk about what is the author's purpose, who's the audience for that author's audience, and the context for the situation. So again, let me scroll down here to topic real quick. So let's say we are using JFK's inaugural address. All right, so using JFK's inaugural address as the example, let me open this up in another link. So here is the text. Let's say I'm going to do a rhetorical analysis of this text. This is JFK's inaugural address, and I want to analyze this text for my essay, this argument for my essay. So I'm going to come back to the instructions here. What is the author's purpose? What's JFK's purpose? Who is JFK speaking to? And what's the context for this speech? How credible was the message in that argument? What was the speaker's ability to engage readers emotionally? And what's the logic that the speaker used? What's the logic that JFK used in this inaugural address? Also, the author's use of additional rhetorical elements. So how did the author engage with voice, style, tone, organization, diction, and so on? And whether and how did that author use the elements, did the author's use of those elements help or hinder the writer's attempt to persuade the audience? So this is you gauging how effective the writer, author, speaker was in their attempt at engaging with the audience. All right, and so here I left a little note. You do want to include a brief explanation of the term and that identifies how you understand the definition of that term or concept, and then explain how your assessment meets the definition. So what this is saying is essentially, let's say I am assessing JFK's use of logos, and I say, JFK did really well with engaging in an appeal to logos. So what you would want to do is say, well, here's what logos means. So show me that you understand what logos means, and then give us the quote that demonstrates and shows, okay, if this is what logos means, here is where JFK did it really well. So that's something that you want to do. It's not just enough to say, oh, the writer was engaging with ethos. What does ethos mean to you in this context that you're using it in the essay? All right, and then lastly, you want to discuss the overall strength and effectiveness of the argument. So this entire row of bullets here is what you want to discuss in your essay that is evaluating the effectiveness, right? So this is your rhetorical analysis of the argument. So here is what you are doing. These steps here are what will guide you through your analysis and what you need to do in your own essay. So the requirements are, you need to make sure you have at least 900 words. You do need a thesis, an introduction and conclusion, and then those body paragraphs. And these body paragraphs here, this is what you'll be discussing in your body paragraphs. You want to use examples and quotations from the argument. So when it says the argument, this is referring to the text or the topic that you chose. And you do want to use MLA style, and then I put some links to sample papers. So if you click on this link right here, that will bring you to the MLA review page. And on this page here, it gives you several different examples and different things to think about in terms of MLA. Here's one on style, formatting, in-text citations, so example. So let's say you want to quote your argument in text. You want to quote that JFK speech in your text. You click on this link, which brings you to a guide on how to do so. And so this example shows someone, I think this is Karl Marx here, right? Someone quoting Karl Marx on page 43, and this shows how you would integrate that quote from Marx into your own sentence and use this as a guide. Additionally, here there are links to sample papers. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. This link will take you to MLA's page, where there are lots of sample papers that you can look at just to get an idea of what an MLA formatted paper looks like. And here's a good example of what an MLA paper looks like. So for style purposes, your paper should look something like this if you followed the MLA instructions. Okay, so that gives you an overall idea of how to format, what you need to write. Again, you have lots of options down here. I'm just going to scroll through the rest of the assignments very quickly. I won't click on these, but you can kind of pick where do you want to use this as an example to or use this as a moment to explore and think about what do you want to analyze. So pick one. Maybe that's not necessarily your favorite topic or favorite website, but what would be an article or an argument that would be useful for you to achieve this assignment, which is a rhetorical analysis. So you want to look for arguments here in one of these options. You choose from one of these, 1, 2, and 3. You want to look for, you choose from either 1, from either 2, or from 3. You're just picking one article overall. And you want to choose that based on which one do I have an understanding of how to assess logos, pathos, ethos, the rhetorical situation, and so on? So if there's one where you're like, oh, I really see what the writer is doing here in terms of engaging with the audience and making appeals to them, that's the one you'll likely want to use. And then once you've chosen that one, you'll come back up here and you'll start writing your essay. So you'll have your, you'll start off with an introduction in your essay, and then here in the body paragraphs of your essay, you would start writing an analysis where you say, okay, here was the author's purpose, here was their audience, here's how well they did, and here's the terms I'm using, what the terms mean, and how I see this writer meeting the qualifications for ethos in this place. And then you would quote them as well. So don't forget, you do have those required quotations that you have to use. It does have to be an MLA style. The paper should be about 900 words. And that's going to complete your rhetorical analysis essay assignment. Actually, let me go down to the link here on grades. You'll see here for grading, we'll use the rubric here. I think this will open in mind, so you can kind of get a sense of what I'll be looking at here in the rubric in terms of how well you've organized your paper and what I will specifically be focused on in terms of the analysis itself. All right, so that covers how to complete the rhetorical analysis essay. If you have questions about this assignment or anything else, let me know.